Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin, Book 1, Chapter 11, Section 13. As long as doctrine was pure and strong, the Church rejected images. But setting aside this distinction, let us in passing examine if it is expedient to have in Christian churches any images at all, whether they represent past events or the bodies of men. First, if the authority of the ancient church moves us in any way, we will recall that for about 500 years, during which religion was still flourishing and a purer doctrine thriving, Christian churches were commonly empty of images. Thus, it was when the purity of the ministry had somewhat degenerated that they were first introduced for the adornment of churches. I shall not discuss what reason impelled those who were the first authors of this thing, but if you compare age with age, you will see that these innovations had much declined from the integrity of those who had done without images. Why? Are we to think that those holy fathers would have allowed the church to go for so long without something they adjudged useful and salutary? Of course, it was because they saw in it either no usefulness or very little, but very much danger, that they repudiated it out of deliberation and reason, rather than overlook it out of ignorance or negligence. Augustine even states this in clearer words. When they are established in these seats, he says, in honorable loftiness, so they are attended by those who pray and those who sacrifice, by the varied likeness of living members and senses, although they lack both sense and life, they affect infirm minds, so that they seem to live and breathe, etc. And elsewhere, for the shape of the idol's bodily members makes and in a sense compels the mind dwelling in a body to suppose that the idol's body too has feeling, because it looks very like its own body, etc. A little later, images have more power to bend the unhappy soul because they have mouth, eyes, ears, feet, than to strengthen it, because they do not speak or see or hear or walk. This seems likely to be the reason why John wished to warn us not only against the worship of idols, but also against idols themselves. And by the dreadful madness that has heretofore occupied the world almost to the total destruction of godliness, we have experienced too much how the ensign of idolatry is, and as it were, set up, as soon as images are put together in churches. For man's folly cannot restrain itself from falling headlong into superstitious rites. But even if so much danger were not threatening, when I ponder the intended use of churches, somehow or other it seemed to me unworthy of their holiness for them to take on images other than those living and symbolical ones which the Lord has consecrated by His word. I mean baptism and the Lord's Supper, together with other rites by which our eyes must be too intensely gripped and too sharply affected to seek other images forged by human ingenuity. Behold, the incomparable boon of images, for which there is no substitute, if we are to believe the papists.